You are something new in this world, never before. Since the beginning of time, has there ever been anybody exactly like you? And never again throughout all the ages to come will there ever be anybody exactly like you again. The new science of genetics inform us that you are what you are largely as a result of 24 chromosomes contributed by your father and 24 chromosomes contributed by your mother. These 48 in each chromosome. There may be, say, Amron Sanford, anywhere from the score to 100 of gene with a single gene. In some cases, able to change the whole life of an individual. Truly, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Even after your mother and father met and mated, there was only one chance in a 300,000 300,000 billion that the person who is specifically you would be born. In other, if even after your mother and father met and mated, there was only one chance in a 300,000 billion that the person who is specifically you would be born. In other words, if you had a 300,000 billion brother and sister, they might have they might have all been different from you. Is, is all this guesswork? No, it is a scientific fact. If you would like to read more about it, go to your published library and browse a book entitled "You and Heredity" by the Armand Smith, Sniffield. 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 I can talk with conviction about this subject of being yourself because I feel deeply about it. I know what I am talking about. I know from bitter and costly experience to illustrate when I first came to New York from the cornfield of Missouri. I enrolled in American Academy of Dramatic Art. American Academy of Dramatic Art. I aspired to be an actor. I had what I thought was a brilliant idea, a shortcut to success, an idea so simple, so foolproof that I could not understand why thousands of ambitious people had not already discovered it. It was this: I would study how the famous actor of the day I would study how the famous actor of that day, Joe Drew, Walter Hamden, and Otis Skinner got their effect. Then I would imitate the best point of each one of them and make myself into a shining trumpet combination of all of them. How silly I was! Absurd! How silly! How silly! How absurd! I had to waste years of my life imitating other people before it penetrated through my thick Missouri skull that I had to be a myself and that I could not possibly be anyone else. That de-stressing experience ought to have taught me a lasting lesson. But it didn't. Not me. I was too dumb. I had to learn it all over again. Several years later, I set out to write what I hoped would be the best book on public speaking for businessmen that had ever been written. I had the same foolish idea about writing this book that I had formerly had about acting. I was going to borrow the idea of a lot of other writers and put them all in the one book, a book that would have everything. So I got a score of book on public speaking and spent a year incorporating their idea into my manuscript. But it finally dawned on me once again that I was playing the fool. The hodgepodge of other men's idea that I had written was so synthetic, so dull that no businessman would ever plod through it. So I tossed a year. years old into a water waste basket and started all over again. This time This time I said to myself, "You have got to be a Dale Carnegie. With all his fault and limitation, you can't possibly be anybody else." So I quit trying to be a combination of other men. I rolled up my sleeve and did what I should have done in the first place. I wrote a textbook on a public speaking out of my own experience, observation, and conviction as a speaker and a teacher of speaking. I learned for all time. I hope the lesson that Sir Walter Raleigh learned. I am not talking about the Sir Walter who threw his coat in the mud for the Queen to step on. I am talking about the Sir Walter Raleigh who was a professor of English literature at Oxford back in 1904. I can't write a book commensurate with Shakespeare, he said, but I can write a book by me. Be yourself. Act on the sage advice that Larvis Berlin gave the late George Gershwin. When Berlin and Gershwin first met, Berlin was famous, but Gershwin was a struggling young composer working for $35 a week in a tin pan alley. Berlin, impressed by the Gershwin ability, offered Gershwin a job as his musical secretary at almost three times the salary he was then getting. But don't take the job, Berlin advised. If you do, you may develop into a second-rate Berlin. But if you insist to be being yourself, someday you will become first-rate Gershwin. Gershwin heeded that warning and slowly transformed himself into one of the significant American composers of his generation. Charlie Chaplin, Will Rogers, Mary Margaret, McBride, Jane Austen, and millions of others had to learn the lesson I am trying to be hammer home in this chapter. They had to learn the hard way, just as I did. When Charlie Chaplin first started making films, the director of the picture insisted on Chaplin imitating the popular German comedian of that day. Charlie Chaplin got nowhere until he acted himself. Bob Hope had a similar experience, spent a year in the singing and dancing act and got nowhere until he began to wisecrack and be himself. Will Rogers tried a rope in a battlefield vaudeville for years without saying a word. He got nowhere until he discovered his unique gift for the humor and began to talk as he twirled his rope. when when Jenny Auntie tried to get rid of his Texas accent and dressed like a city boy and claiming he was from New York, people merely laughed behind his back. But when he started twanging his banjo and singing cowboy ballads, Jane Auntie started out on his career that made him a world most popular cowboy both in picture and on the radio. If you are something new in this world, be glad of it. Make the most of what nature gave you. In the last analysis, all autobiographical, you can sing only when you are. You can paint only when you are. You must be what your experience, your environment, and your heredity have made you. For better or for worse, you must cultivate your own little garden. For better or worse, you must play your own little instrument in the orchard of life. As Emerson said in his essay of self-reliance, there is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that limited imitation is suicide, that he must take himself for better, for worse, as he portioned that thought the wide universe is full of good. No kernel of nourishing corn can come to him but through his toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given to him to till. The power which resides in him is new in a nature and none but he knows that that is which he can do, nor does he know until he has tried.